My guest today is the Village of Mamaroneck's go-to guy, the man who, with grace and diplomacy, sees to the complex management of the Village of Mamaroneck, Village Manager Rich Slingerland. He's a busy man, and we only have him for a half hour, so we're going to whip through a long list of issues ranging from the many development proposals, present and planned, budget and taxes, the community's struggles with critters, deer and coyotes, as well as try to clarify the new parking meter technology upgrades proposed, detail the new resident parking permit plan for streets around the Mamaroneck train station, and, if we have time, talk about Harbor Island and Mamaroneck Avenue. So buckle your seatbelts. We have a lot of ground to cover. I'm Alice Bloom. This is A Town in Village 2. Welcome back. Rich, thank you so much for being my guest tonight.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
I know you bolted over here, and I know you're going to bolt right back. So we have so much to cover. Let's start with a conversation about the development plans in the Village of Mamaroneck. I feel like somebody has drawn a bullseye around the village and said, there. Do you feel like you're inundated with proposals?
Well, Mamaroneck's a very popular place. A lot of people want to be here. A lot of people want to develop here. One of the best things about the village is our downtown has such a very low vacancy rate. So we've really got a lot of interest in the community. That's good for all the residents who already live here because the low vacancy rate means high rents, good taxes, good contribution. The better our commercial base, the less demand or impact on residential taxes. So we want to maintain that healthy balance around the village. There are plans for future developments of residential nature. That's some of the things we're going to cover tonight.
Okay. Let's start out with what's called TOD, the
Yes.
Transit-Oriented Development. And that's puzzled a lot of people, including myself.
Sure.
That's an area around the Mamaroneck train station.
Correct.
Right. Okay. What does transit-oriented development mean? And there's a map.
Sure.
We're going to bring that back up. A map of the area so people can kind of get an idea of where that is.
It's a defined area close to the train station, but it's transit-oriented development, or TOD, is something that's worked out regionally as development related to mass transit. Okay. You want to have easy access for people who live close or near to trains. It'll give them better access for commuting. There's recent examples or common examples around the area, including Bronxville, Mount Kisco, Scarsdale, Pelham, and others in the area. There's no density increase in the actual development, but it will allow an incentive for to make the development possible. It includes mixed use, below market rate housing, and payments into a neighborhood stabilization fund. But the village is following a trend that's actually a regional trend.
Okay. But what I'm trying to understand is what will that mean for people who live in the village? What are the actual projects that are planned for the TOD? One I know is the one people call the Three Jalapeno site.
Yes.
Okay, that's the restaurant that is no longer in existence, but it's a substantial site. What's proposed for that site? I think the address is 698 Mamaroneck Avenue.
I think it's 690. 690,
okay.
Yep. From what we are aware of in the application that's before our land use boards, there's 21 units, of development with approximately 2,600 square feet of commercial space. Now, I don't believe that has a final site plan approval, but it's in the process and it's getting close to that end of process.
Okay, so that will be a significant residential development.
Yes.
Now, there's another project in the works for the site of the former Straight Gate Church.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know the address, but I'm sure you do.
Actually, I'm not certain about the address of Straight Gate Church, but I know it's at the intersection of basically Madison and Center and Old White Plains Road.
Okay, now what's happened to the church?
What's happening is, that's also in process. I don't believe that has all its final approvals yet. But Aquatots, which functions out of Harrison and I believe there's other locations that they operate, has a very long waiting list, and there's a lot of interest for them to build additional pool facilities. They're an educational facility for people with young children who want to learn how to swim. And there's also there's a training and competitive aspect to that too.
So this building will be reused. It won't be torn down. Is that
Exactly right. The building will be adaptively reused, so the footprint will not change. The only structure I'm aware of that will come down is the old pastor's house.
Okay.
I don't believe it's been taken down yet, but it's in terrible condition after years of neglect.
Okay.
The parking lot will be reallocated and repaved and improved, and it should be of significant improvement to the neighborhood. It'll be a spruce up to that intersection and make things much better.
So how does that relate to transit-oriented development? We have one residential proposal, which will probably be approved sometime in the near future. What else will happen in that area?
Well, I don't think the aquatots as an adaptive reuse is I believe it's in the TOD area. I'm not certain of that.
Oh, it looked like it was. But
I'm not certain of that. It's TOD is really intended more for residential or mixed use.
So are we inviting more residential to come into that area?
Well, aquatots is just purely
What we understand is recreation.
training.
Yeah.
It's an incentive to rebuild areas or, let's say, properties that have become downtrodden or neglected. So the Three Jalapenos has been vacant for 6 or 7 years, and it's a perfect time now to consider getting a new tenant in there.
Okay. Are there other sites in the area that you are honing in on to?
One of the slides I flipped to, which was one of the presentation issues that came up, was the A&P. As far as we're aware, all of the indications we have from the owner-developer that's named Brixmore Property Group. Their national focus is on grocery stores. So the only information we have at this time, I don't have any, I can't predict if they come in with more. Okay. They're planning to bring back in a grocery store at that site.
Okay, so no residential there.
At this time that we're aware of.
Okay, I know the mayor has tried to make that a priority.
Well, it's been discussed, and I'm not sure if the property would be big enough to make it an economically viable residential site, or let's say mixed-use residential site.
Okay, so we're talking about the area we call Washingtonville?
Washingtonville and the Mamaroneck Avenue Business Corridor.
Okay.
So it's not, we kind of consider the central downtown of Mamaroneck from the train station to Boston Post Road, but really it kind of extends to the Bend in Mamaroneck Avenue as well.
Okay, so those of us who know this area well know what we mean when we're driving up Mamaroneck Avenue. So what we're doing, if I want to clarify, is to try to invite rehabilitation of that area with a view towards bringing more people to live in that area and not use their cars, but encourage them to use the public mass transit.
Correct.
Metro North.
Correct. We're also not trying to do a huge, takeover and tear down and rebuild everything. It's kind of filling in the blanks. It's trying to encourage addressing properties that have been underutilized or neglected or forgotten about.
Is there a list of those in Village Hall if a developer was interested?
Well, I think if anybody wanted to take a look at this presentation, this is posted on our Village website.
Okay.
And I could post the updated version as well, and anybody who wanted to take a look at it can.
Okay.
I believe the Blood Brothers property is another one.
Okay.
And that's been fairly controversial for quite some time, and it had gone to court. We have a court order deciding that the original site plan that was granted will remain. That means 96 units will be allowed on that property. So that's a significant development, but again, of a neglected and underused and forgotten about property.
Right, something that formerly had approval.
Correct. And the court upheld that former approval.
Okay.
But we're waiting to see, and it's really going through a lot of changes. Okay. They have to comply with flood requirements. There's a lot of economic concerns. We want to make sure it works with the Army Corps of Engineers flood project, and that's something else I'll touch on later.
Okay, well, I've already kept you too long on one subject. Let's go quickly to Mamaroneck Avenue.
Sure.
There's a proposal for a walkway between the Emlyn Theater and between Library Lane and Mamaroneck Avenue?
That's actually been implemented.
Oh, good.
Yep, which is great. It's an easy access to and from Mamaroneck Avenue to the parking lot underneath the Emlyn Theater and the library. We've always had this parking lot here. I think it has about 20 spaces. Right. But the great thing about it now is that it's a lot more accessible for the new buildings that are there. We have the great restaurant, Spice Kitchen, that came in, and the music school, Bach to Rock. So it's great to see some new vitality taking place on the avenue. Okay. And the access to parking is a big boon to them.
Now, there's a lot going on at that part of the avenue, the lower, across from the Regatta. I think that's how to say it. We look at what we call the old bridal shop
Exactly
site.
Right. Exactly right.
And there's a proposal for a residential development there.
I don't have the specific information about that. I know on the Library Lane side of that the bridal site, there's 6 units, I believe, in there. I don't know if they're habited yet, but it's really more focusing on the Library Lane side. The bridal shop, if you take a look at it, is still vacant.
Okay.
And they're advertising it as retail space available for a new tenant.
Because what we have on the screen right now is actually a proposed
That is constructed.
Ah, okay.
But that's on the Library Lane site right down the street.
Okay,
So,
that was a little
what's
unclear.
on Mamaroneck Avenue is that retail space. It's much improved and much nicer than what was there, and it has the 6 units of residential on the
We're
back side.
confused. Now, what about the bank building, the old bank building that
The
was
Chase Bank,
Well, the Chase Bank and the one across the street.
that would be 100, the corner property,
Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah.
I know the library was in there temporarily.
That's right.
We've heard interest in the property, but I don't know if there's anything going on with it. We haven't heard there's any plan to redevelop it or expand on it or have new tenants.
Okay. Okay, so nothing really going on there.
No.
How about the Chase building? Chase is not
The
there
Chase
anymore.
building, we've heard, we had actually done an outreach just to see if there was any interest or if we could find out more information. And the information we got back from Chase is they're looking to sell the building with all the groups of other buildings. They purchased a number of different banks maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and they're looking to do a real estate consolidation and reduce the number of offices.
I see. So nothing that we can
No
report to
immediate
our
plan. They're looking to do that as one bulk plan as well, not just individual sales.
Okay. Former Chatsworth site. I was totally surprised when I walked by there a couple of months ago and saw Chatsworth was gone.
Yes, and I believe that's already approved. It's a complete rehabilitation of the existing space. There's 10 residential units at the formal auction site, which is in the downtown commercial area, and that's moving along. It's our understanding they're looking to maintain and spruce up the facade, which will be nice, and it'll be good to see some. I don't remember if they have a mixed use or not, but I do know we're getting all the residential units in there.
Okay.
So.
Where did Chatsworth go?
I believe they relocated. I don't remember what the new address is.
okay.
I think it's in the industrial area.
Okay, great. I mean, because that just was such a staple in the village.
Yes.
Who hasn't bought something there?
Yeah.
That one little end table or whatever.
Yep.
Moving you quickly through Boston Post Road, what we call the old McGuire's site
Yes.
of McGuire's restaurant. Is there finally going to be some townhouses
Well,
there?
this is proposed. I don't know if it's got their final approval, but they've proposed 6 units. It's on the corner site, and there's a strip of retail stores there as well. But again, like I said, it's an underutilized and long neglected site. We've been having code enforcement issues to make them maintain it, and it'd be nice to see something go back in there.
Okay, now just a little further, I guess it's west, is the site we call across from Orienta. Also a tiny site that used to be a used parking car.
I think, if I remember the address, I think that's 680 West Boston.
620.
This is, 620 is McGuire's, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And I believe the other one is 680, by the Gulf Station.
Oh, right, by the Gulf Station.
Yes, and if I remember correctly, there's a proposal for residential units. The main thing that's been on the table right now before the land use boards is the removal of rock, because there's a huge rock outcropping on the site, and they're trying to figure out how to remove it safely and appropriately and to minimize the disturbance to the neighbors.
So for those 2 sites, residents are not looking to seeing anything going in the ground very near future.
Not in immediate future, but in the future.
It's been years since
Yeah.
those have been vacated.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move right along. The Star project in the Village, Hampshire.
Sure.
Okay, let's briefly. Hampshire was sold in 2010.
That sounds right.
The golf club owners were on the verge of bankruptcy. We understood, and it was sold to.
I guess it was a group, or my understanding was that it was a group of investors.
Okay.
They purchased it, and they had put it back into service. I believe it's still in operation, but they've submitted an application to the mayor and board of trustees for some rezoning. The board declined to consider that. And
So their first project was for a multi-story building on the footprint of the clubhouse.
correct.
Okay, and that would have required a rezoning
Yes.
of the property, and the village board has the authority to do that if they so choose.
Correct.
And they chose not to entertain that.
They decided not to,
Okay.
even consider it. So at that point, a lawsuit is filed against the village. But Hampshire did come back with a new application, and that's gone back through the land use process. And it's currently going through that process to see whether, that would work out or not.
Okay, and their current proposal is vaguely
Vaguely, it's a number of single-family homes. They're, as we noted to the summit presentation, again updated tonight, 44 single-family homes and 61 attached carriage homes.
Okay.
So that's a total of 105 residential units.
Okay.
So we'll see if that's the final determination or if there is a possibility under state law that the planning board could consider a different approach for that whole
So
site.
it's now before the planning board.
Correct. And the other land use boards.
Okay. Well, they're concurrent reviews.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I know that there's legal action. We can't talk about that, but there is an action pending against the village?
They have filed a lawsuit against the village for, you know, a lot of different things. I'm not going to get into the details of that. But I think that there's a very high multi-million-dollar number on that as well. So we'll let the courts handle that and our lawyers defend the village. And we'll
Okay, one last question about Hampshire. Is it possible that their original proposal, which would include a request for rezoning, would be considered again?
I couldn't say. I don't know.
Okay.
So it's, I think the hope is that the land use process will be able to, you know, achieve a positive conclusion and something that's agreeable to everybody. So we'll see how successful that is.
Okay, I hope that clarifies things for our folks at home. So much more to talk about the industrial area. There's a proposal for, or a visioning committee, I guess you'd call it?
Yes.
To think about
the industrial area is probably one of the more forgotten about areas of the village. The village did a request for proposals, brought in a great planning and visioning firm called Replace out of downtown Manhattan. They've done this kind of approach for other areas for redevelopment, for a new approach, for a new future vision. The mayor and board appointed a committee of volunteers, very high-thinking, experienced, and very, you know, great understanding and knowledge base to bring to this committee. They've been working together with Replace. There was a public presentation in the library a couple of months ago, and we're going to have another summarized presentation of that whole visioning plan for the industrial area on February 22nd at the board meeting. Okay,
now let's just backtrack. I mean, the Village of Mamaroneck has always had a pretty vital industrial area.
Yep.
What's the vacancy rate like now?
I don't know what the vacancy rate is, but I do know that we've had a transition.
Okay.
We do have some old, I guess the brownfield properties. So some of them have been remedied. Some have been re-inhabited by the storage companies. But what we can kind of consider the decline of the industrial areas, there's a lot of open parking lots. And that's really not the highest or best use of the area. We're looking to have something that would fit in better with the village community, something that meets more with the long-term vision for the village. There's been thoughts and conversations with the industrial committee of sports facilities, of food focus of the neighborhood to bring in different kinds of companies that would have a synchronicitous interaction with each other. There's been discussions about having live-work opportunities for professionals so they could have an office and a place where they would live and function out of the same place. So there's new and creative ways of approaching this area that would bring vitality back to it instead of allowing it to continue to have this decline.
If somebody has a great idea, and I know people talk about the industrial area, if people have good ideas, how could they get involved or pass those ideas along to you?
I would say the best people to contact to discuss that whole concept is get in touch with our Village of Mamaroneck building department, and we have a planning division in that building department. We have our village planner, Bob Galvin, and Greg Cutler, and get your ideas to them, and we'll coordinate them and include them with the discussion for the industrial
area. Nobody need be shy.
No, exactly right. Please give us a call, give us your ideas and input.
I remember when I sat on the planning board years ago, and we were looking at Harbor Island Park at the time, and we were ready to approve a proposal, and somebody came at the 11th hour with this great idea about a spray field. What do we call it?
Spray ground.
Spray ground.
Yep.
And we said, where have you been? What a great idea. But nobody had thought of it before. Anyway, I digress. We've got so much more to talk about. Flood study, the Army Corps of Engineers.
And I kind of think of this as one of the most important projects facing the village, past, present, or future. And it does have a village-wide impact because we've got maybe, I'm just throwing out an estimate of 1,000 different residences or properties that are affected by this flooding area in the inland area of the village. And the importance of that does affect everybody because it reduces our access to get through the community. It closes down roads. It focuses our resources on fire and police and emergency response to evacuate people. There's a lot of impacts to the business area. So, and if you think about that, that declines the property values. That causes increase in property values for the other residents of the village. So there's a whole huge litany of counter, involved impacts.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. People have heard about an Army Corps engineer study forever.
Yes. And there was one done 30 years ago and maybe another one done another 20 or 30 years ago before that. The value of this one is that it took those prior studies and considered everything. We're working cooperatively with the county, the state of New York, and the federal government through the Army Corps. But they took a project, the last project concept they came up with was a tunnel under Fenimore Road. The present day value of that tunnel would have been $160 million and probably wouldn't be approved by all the regulatory agencies. The new concept now is a little more conservative, a lot more practical. It's really widening and deepening the rivers between Fenimore Road and Columbus Park, and then Boston Post Road and the Sound, the harbor and the Sound, and also Mamaroneck River up to I-95 and then back down to Columbus Park. There's talk about part of the inclusion of the plan is for elevation of homes in the heights, but this is all focusing on the most cost-effective use of the federal monies, the state monies, and the county and the village.
When will the plan be finalized?
The plan is presently out for public comment. That was just released January 29th. We have a public presentation on February 25th, and I would encourage anybody who has any interest in it. We have the links posted on the village website. We're having that public presentation. I would encourage anybody who has any interest to come down to that and make your voice heard or find out information about it and let us know how you feel about it.
And that is when?
That is February 25th.
February 25th.
The times, it will be in the Emlyn Theater right next door.
Okay.
And the hours, the doors will be open from 6 to 10 p.m., but the actual presentation will take place at 7:30, and it will be live. So we're making that, we're working with LMC TV, and I want to thank everybody here for helping us to make that happen.
With pleasure. I'll be delighted to see something. I think everybody will be delighted to see something finally happening.
And not to throw everybody for a loop on the sticker shock, but there is roughly a $70 million price tag to the project. The village's portion of that is going to be approximately $10 million. So if you think about it, the federal government will put up $30 to $40 million, whatever the final number is. There's a percentage that they have to come up with. The state would probably come up with 10 to 15 million. The county somewhere, in the $10 million range, and the village somewhere in the $10 million range. So that's your roughly 70 million.
Would that get bonded, or is that taxes increases? I mean, assessments? How does that work?
Most likely it would be bonded or appropriation of fund balance and bonding, or whatever combination of different things. But if you think about it, you're getting a $70 million project. It's almost like an 80% grant or 85% grant to the village.
I think everybody knows it has to be done.
Well, I would hope so.
I mean, we lived through Sandy and 100-year floods that happened
Hurricane
every few
Irene,
years.
the 2007 floods where we called in the, was it the National Guard? And we had Senator Schumer here and people going around in military vehicles to evacuate and rescue residents. So.
And it's happened many times. It's not just that often. Okay, time for the lightning round. There's so much more we want to cover. And put down your papers because you won't have time.
I'm just flipping.
Animal issues. Yes. Coyotes in the village of Mamaroneck.
Coyotes.
Deer in the village of Mamaroneck.
Yep.
Geese in the village of Mamaroneck.
Geese in the village of Mamaroneck. Well, I don't mean to crow about the goose problem, but we've actually, I think, had some success, and we're headed in the right direction on the goose problem. We've had 3 to 4 years of working cooperatively with the USDA. We're oiling eggs, which prevents the birth of the new goslings. We've prevented the local flock from expanding by up to 300 geese. We have goose chasing dogs, including one of LMC TV's helpers here and workers here who has a dog. It's volunteer goose dog corps, so we have people helping out with that. We vacuum the field to clean up the goose waste so that the kids can play on clean fields and not come home with poop-covered shoes. And so there's a lot of things we're doing, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
Okay, coyotes.
Coyotes. We've become faced with coyotes becoming increasingly an urban and suburban animal. We've got corridors where they get down here through the train tracks, through those corridors, through the parkways like I-95 or more really the hutch. They come down through the parks. They have a wide-ranging area, and they typically don't interact with people, but when they do, people should be cautious and stay away because that leads us to think that they might be ill or have rabies. Be loud, be aggressive, act in a manner to chase them off.
How big is this problem?
It's not that common.
Okay.
I mean, believe it or not,
people need not lock themselves in their houses.
People don't need to panic. Just be cautious and be prepared.
Okay, Rich, I've got about 12 other items.
Sure.
There's no way we're going to cover them.
That's okay.
Parking meter, the new technology.
Parking meters is a big issue and very hot right now.
Yes.
The board had purchased 18 multi-space meters in 2014, which we got delivered last year. The village board established a committee to take a look at that and figure out how it's going to work best in the downtown. We have a pilot program testing different kinds of meters, both multi-space and single space. Both those meters, the single space meters are smart meters, just like the multi-space. They take coin, credit cards, and we're going to have pay by phone app. So we're really trying to make this as convenient as possible for everybody. We're going to see how that works out. No decision has been made yet, but the board is reviewing whether or not to increase rates.
Okay.
And that's got to be decided upon. So the board also appointed a citizen ad hoc committee, and they're working with staff to come out with some plans and recommendations to the board. So that's moving along.
Okay, so people need not be hysterical that they're not going to be able to park on the avenue and then do their errands and go to dinner. And
correct.
Okay, it's not going to be a big
We're not
lifestyle
eliminating spaces. We're not making things more difficult. We're looking to make things more easy.
Okay, the concern that people will not be able to park more than 2 hours if they want to.
That's been stepped away from.
Okay.
It's only going to be pay by plate too. I'm sorry, pay by space. I
by
misspoke. Sorry.
Okay, because it was
it's
that
pay by space.
Okay.
So that was there was a big concern about pay by plate, and that's been stepped away from.
So much more to talk about. Leaf bagging program.
Yes.
There's a pilot program.
We did a great pilot program in Washingtonville that worked out wonderfully. All the bags were issued to the residents. We prevented crushed leaves along the curb lines. We prevented leaves being blocked by cars, loss of parking spaces, filling up the catch basins with junk. We prevented all the crushed leaves and debris from washing into the Sound and the harbor.
But let's be candid, Washingtonville has fewer leaves than an area like Shore Acres.
And that's true. There are bigger properties in Shore Acres and in Orienta and even in the Heights. If you look at this, though, there are more and more communities
they're doing it.
that are bagging leaves.
Who's doing it?
I believe Scarsdale has done so.
Okay. And people
I know certain areas, I think Irvington might have done this.
Rich, I'd love to talk more.
Sure.
We don't have more time. In 10 words or less, what do you want residents to know about the Village of Mamaroneck?
We're working hard for you. The village is in great shape, and we're really trying to plan for the future.
Fiscal.
The village's
Salus?
financial condition, we just had a great audit come back that we're clean again. Our total budget's $34 million, and our fund balance or reserves are approximately $9 million. So we're really keeping everything well balanced and providing all the services that everybody's.
Even with a tax cap.
Yes.
Great job.
So we're keeping everything on roll.
Thanks so much for being my guest. There's
You're
so much
welcome.
more to talk about. Will you come
There is.
back?
Yes, I will.
Okay, I know where you live.
Yes, you do.
I'm going to come get you. Thank you so much, Rich.
Okay,
it's really
sure.
been my pleasure.
Nice to be here.
Thanks at home for watching. I'm Alice Bloom. We'll see you next time.